Hi, friends. You just did an investigation where you're trying to determine, is there ever a time when half is not the same as a half, which seems really, really weird. A half is a half, right? But we've learned a lot about fractions so far. You've been learning how to read fractions, how to interpret what the amount that they're actually telling you about, right? You know to read it, 1/2. You know to look at the denominator next and think, okay, whatever the whole is has been divided in 2 parts, and I've got one of them. And then you're able to reason about, right, that amount, half. Is that like a little bit of it, half of it, or all of it? And obviously half would be half of it, right? So we learned that. Then we also learned comparisons and equivalence. So we found out that half, if there was 4, now there's 2 parts in the whole, but if there's 4 parts in the whole instead, 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, 1, 2 of those is 2/4. And we found out that that's 2 different ways to say 1/2. I could say, I'll have 2/4 of that cookie, or I could say I'll have half of that cookie, and I'd mean the exact same thing. Those are equivalent, right? We've learned that. Then we also learned how to compare fractions that represent different amounts. For instance, 1/4 from here to here. And remember, when we use the number line, they're not saying that line is 1/4. They're saying the distance from here to here is 1/4 of the whole thing. So 1/4, we could compare that amount to 1/2, which would be from there to there, right? We learned how to compare those two. What's more, 1/4 or 1/2? And we learned that 1/4 was less than having 1/2. But when was there a time when a half isn't a half? Let's go back to regular whole numbers. Do you agree with this statement that 1 is the same as 1, right? Of course you do. Unless I said 1 cup of water or 1 cup or 1 full swimming pool. How about that? 1 full cup of water or 1 full swimming pool? Which one is more? A swimming pool full of water, obviously. So when it's just the numbers by themselves, sure, 1 is big, 1 is the same as 1. But if we find out that there's a specific whole that they're referring to, that changes everything, right? So if it's 1 cup of water and 1 full swimming pool full of water, all of a sudden, this 1, if you're asking me that question, 1 would be more than 1 in that case. So when we're working with fractions, we have to think about what's the whole. Sometimes they'll just be numbers. They'll just be fractions without any definition of what the whole is. And in that case, we just take them as if they were from the same whole. If they're not telling me they're from different wholes, I'm always going to be sure that they're from the same size whole to begin with. But if it's a word problem and they're telling me that there's 2 different wholes, I have a whole nother thing to think about, don't I? For instance, half of a medium pizza and half of a large pizza. Those are 2 different things. We can make it even smaller. What if it's one of those personal pan pieces they have that are just 1 serving? Half of that is going to be a lot less in my stomach than half of a large pizza. So when we're thinking about context for what the whole is that the fraction is part of, just keep that in mind. You won't run across it too much, but when you do, be aware that there is a time when a half isn't a half, but it's only if they're talking about 2 different wholes, which again, will not happen all that often, but when it does, you're going to be prepared, right?